All right, so today I woke up and read this blog post by the philosopher Stephen Hicks, who's associated with the Atlas Society, that is an analogy aimed at criticizing the Ayn Rand Institute for accepting PPP money. And it's worth thinking about because it's all based around this analogy that I'll talk about in a second. But the wider issue here that's useful for thinking about, quite apart from this piece, is how and when to use analogies or metaphors or thought experiments and the kind of pitfalls. And I've noticed for a long time that some of the worst thinkers I knew were the people who would just constantly be groping for analogies and metaphors. Like, I think they can be super helpful, but they also have pitfalls. And that is that it's very easy to think that you have a good analogy and have an awful one that completely changes the context, confuses the issue, and does not illuminate. And I think that's what's going on in this piece. So I'll link to the thing below, but the essential argument is, okay, the government comes along and says, we're going to nationalize Walmart, and for one day everybody can loot it. And then you have a person sitting around thinking, okay, I'm going to go loot Walmart, and it's a matter of justice because the government's done some bad things to me, and I'm going to consider it compensation. And then the idea is, ha ha ha, isn't this what the Ayn Rand Institute was doing when they said it's a matter of justice to take PPP money? Now, what is Hicks changing in this analogy that seems pretty relevant? So the first thing that you would think of is, well, he's talking about the government targeting one victim and then me saying I'm going to go kind of cash in on that victim. But a better analogy, or the actual state of affairs, is the government victimized all of us with the lockdowns and more widely with the regulatory welfare state. And then there's compensation available, partial compensation, that doesn't come close to the damage that it's actually done that we can take part of. And so that seems pretty relevant. Like, a better analogy, if you wanted to use Walmart, would be the government lets people loot Walmart, and then it says, oh, you know what, Walmart might go out of business, so we're going to give Walmart the ability to get some restitution. Well, that doesn't seem so clearly crazy and unjust, does it? Because if you really took seriously this principle that, hey, anytime you get money from the government, since it's not literally your money, since it's coming from other people, then that you can never get restitution. And I mean, here's an analogy if you want to use one. So a poor kid is beaten completely illegitimately by police within an inch of his life. He gets health care bills because he couldn't afford health insurance. They're $100,000. And now he wants to sue for restitution. And Hicks would say, hey, how can you do that? That's other people's money that you're getting. That's totally illegitimate. So just for starters, this analogy is not capturing the actual situation. Then the other thing that you would think of that's really relevant here is take seriously his scenario. See, this is the problem with these kind of not real world analogies where you're saying this is like this other thing in reality, but I'm going to invent a fantasy and try to draw philosophic conclusions from it, is you're dropping a ton of context that you would have to know. So take seriously this idea that the government literally is saying we're nationalizing Walmart and we're going to allow people to loot it. Well, you're no longer dealing with a mixed economy. You are dealing with a dictatorship. You are basically in the first throes of communism. But the whole context of what Ayn Rand's talking about, what ARI is doing, is how do you navigate life? How do you live a moral life within a mixed economy? This does not apply to a dictatorship. And so the question would be, okay, Hicks, what is your principle for governing life in a mixed economy? Because if your principle is that you can never accept any money from the welfare state, you can never take advantage of any government program because you are a looter, you're the equivalent of somebody looting Walmart in your scenario, well, then what couldn't you do? Well, you couldn't take PPP money, fine. What about Social Security? No, you have to pay Social Security taxes your whole life, but you don't get to take any taxes. Not Medicare, not public schooling, not driving on government roads, not going to a government library, not going to a public university. Oh, wait, except for that Stephen Hicks got all of his degrees at public universities. So I guess he's a looter of Walmart too. So the whole approach is completely illegitimate. And the thing is that like he is a philosopher. He's allegedly an objectivist philosopher and should totally know better. But he's not trying to derive an actual principle for how do you govern life in a mixed economy. He's trying to take pot shots at the Ayn Rand Institute. And that's just ridiculous. So I think the whole motivation is wrong. And so the whole approach is wrong. And it's so garbage in terms of actually trying to be philosophic that it really should be an embarrassment. But don't embarrass yourself. Use analogies, but be very, very careful with how you use them. Use them to help illuminate and test philosophic principles induced from reality that you're trying to apply to reality, not in order to embarrass your opponents, because you will only embarrass yourself. Good luck.